summer of strikes. So there's a lot happening.
Oh.
What? Not bowling.
Love?
No.
Summer of love?
It's not a summer of love, although it depends. It's going to take a lot of love to make these strikes happen and to have them be successful. But summer of strikes, we have a few different strike actions that are about to take place, and are they going to? We'll see. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. What can Brown do for you? That's our thumbnail for this segment, by the way. The first one of them is the UPS driver strike, potentially with the Teamsters. They have been, they voted on an action, and it's now gotten to a point where even Reuters, you know, the narrative managers of the corporate establishment news can't ignore it any longer. So that's exciting to see. But this is actually an article written for Left Voice by a striking rank and file UPS worker activist named Greg Kerwood. And he says we must strike. Right? So that with a little over a month left in what could be the most significant labor battle in decades, UPS workers across the country are preparing to strike. Here we republish a message shared by a militant worker on the necessity of a strike. So this was published a couple days ago. Okay, so this was a great article, or you know, a letter that was published in the lead up. All right, 340,000 UPS workers on August 1st. So they voted for strike action now, like overwhelmingly. I think it was 97%. So toward that end, with his permission, we're republishing a message from Greg Kerwood, who's a UPS driver, member of the Teamsters, that originally appeared on the UPS Teamsters 2023 contract group on June 17th, generating considerable debate. Brother Kerwood, just like sounds like Cornel West wrote that, initiated, well, it's the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, I know. He initiated the Facebook group, which is now ballooned to over 12,600 members. So at Left Voice, we at Left Voice open our pages to UPS workers across the country as they prepare themselves for this potential historic strike. I need to share my screen with Reef so he can see it. I just realized.
Yep.
So, hold on. Screens. There we go. Sorry, everybody. We're doing it live. Okay. So, he says that it's become almost cliche to say that nobody wants... Oh, dude, it's become almost. Come on, I didn't want everyone to know that I was going to be doing that, but it has become almost cliche to say that nobody wants to strike, as if it were somehow uncouth to stand up for one's humanity without a qualifier. But wanting a strike is truly not the question. The question is rather, do we need a strike? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. What was that? We need a strike to unite our members at UPS and our Teamsters Union as a whole. We need a strike to create a generation of militant unionists whose education will be the picket line and whose graduation will be the launch of a new labor movement. We need a strike to create the bonds that hold labor together, that unite workers, those that can only be forged in the furnace of workplace action. We need a strike to energize the entire labor movement, to show workers what they can stand, that they can stand up, that they can fight back, that they can win. We need a strike to remind corporations of the world just who generates the record profits they enjoy every year after year. Ending this fight at UPS without striking, even with a good contract, would be the labor equivalent of a tie ball game. We as Teamsters, and speaking on behalf of Greg here, should not be playing for a tie. We should be playing to win. Surely no one believes this company will be taught a lesson or change its behavior without us withholding our labor. If the company is acquiescing to many of our demands out of fear of a job action and loss of billions, if they're feeling the heat of a potential strike, then we must push further. I love this. The time has come to finally address the issue which underlies all others at UPS, and its power. Are we going to continue to be owned by this company each day, forced to labor until our Lord and Master sees fit to let us go? Or are we going to have control over when and for how long we sell our labor? I say the latter. Until we have a finite workday, both part-time and full-time, we will continue to be at the mercy of this company, and our jobs will continue to dominate our lives. This is not asking for the world. It's simply asking that our employer recognize our humanity. Recognize that we rest and need time to recover. Recognize that we have families and lives outside of work. Recognize that personal time is not a gift, but a basic human right. And until we have this, we must strike. So make no mistake, striking a multi-billion-dollar corporation is not for the faint of heart. It requires strength, commitment, and a willingness to sacrifice in the short term for long-term gain. But I know of no workforce more suited to this task than the men and women who give their blood, sweat, and toil to this company day after day, despite being consistently treated as replaceable cogs in a big brown profit-making machine. So the answer is simply this. If you want to change your workplace and your life, if you want to organize Amazon, if you want to empower workers everywhere to join a union and fight back against the abuses of their employer, if you want to swing the pendulum of power away from corporations and back toward the working class, then we must strike. History is made by those who attempt the impossible, who fight the unwinnable, and who believe the unbelievable, who ignore the voices of the naysayers, the pundits, the experts. This is our time to make history, to right the wrongs of the last 4 decades, and to return the rewards of labor to those who create them. If you want your workplace, your life, your community, and your country to be better tomorrow than they are today, we must strike. In solidarity, that's Greg Kerwood, and that's fucking awesome. And that guy drives a UPS truck. I love it. I can't.
So does our buddy Joe, right?
Joe, INN's Joe, is a member of the UPS Brotherhood of Teamsters.
I think Jimmy worked at UPS, he was saying.
He might have.
Jimmy Dore.
And they voted to strike, by the way. Joe voted. Joe voted to strike.
Let's see if the other Joe decides to let a strike happen. Let's see.
So, not only, it's at the point where even corporate media can't ignore it, to the point where you've got Reuters. They don't want to report on this, right? But what they're saying is UPS workers authorize a strike, seen as leverage for pay talks, right? They think that they're bluffing. They think that they're just using this for leverage. Okay, so this was a June 16th story, has been corrected to fix the date of the contract expiration, which expires at the end of July, I believe. Yep, on July 31st, right? So UPS employees voted overwhelmingly to authorize a strike should contract talks break down after the current agreement ends on midnight, July 31st. 340,000 workers, of which 97% of voting members approved the strike authorization, giving the union maximum leverage to win demands at the bargaining table. Right? So UPS again said it's confident the two sides will reach an agreement. UPS shares fell as much as 1.5% after the news, but quickly pared losses down to 0.6% in midday trades because they have a feeling, the market feels like they're going to always crush the workers, so that doesn't really affect them very much. Not only that, but these companies are still wildly profitable even when they increase the pay of their employees. By the way, they can well afford to pay the money that these drivers are seeking. And they're looking for stability.
Show them the money.
Show me the money. So there is money out there to pay for the increase, like he said, adding that the lift would not be crazy or stressful or drastic to UPS. And he's right, because there is precedent for significant wage increases, Railroad workers got a 24% increase. Unions and FedEx reached a deal for a 30% pay raise. Now, that's a 30% pay raise and a one-time hero bonus over at the port workers for the West Coast. That's great. We were working basically Christmas hours for 2 years straight, which is terrible. But they get what they pay for, said UPS. Said adding that company delivery drivers who make about $150,000 annually, including base pay and benefits for overtime, earn it. Yeah, and they earn it with their bodies too. It's not just about the money. It's about their physical health. It's about the amount of time they have to spend in those hot boxes, which maybe finally, hopefully, might get air conditioning sometime in the future, maybe. They say.
Well, there's a documentary done. I want to see documentary. It was a video done about those particular trucks and how it's a problem. The entire truck's a problem because it's like the U.S. mail system ordered them like a long time ago, and they're still in service, and like they don't compensate for the heat and like of any component, like let alone the box of metal that it is.
Yeah,
like. So
Terrible.
everything's failing. They're falling apart. Infrastructure's dying.
Terrible.
And who's taking whose blood's paying for that? Ours. So
we're paying for it in blood.
But that's what Brown can do for you. So
out of our friends out of Left Voice, and I think I dropped that Left Voice is an Indie Media Award honoree. Hey, we created an award to showcase and honor, thank you, sir, to showcase and honor some of these great outlets and content creators and writers and journalists and live streamers. I know that Jimmy Dore hates the word live streamers, YouTubers, podcasters. I don't know what the hell you want to call us all, but we make a ton of stuff. And I just feel like podcaster is just inferior because we make clips and do all kinds of other stuff too. But anyway, so that was out of Left Voice. Our next story is about the Writers Guild strike, and now the fact that the actors, the SAG-AFTRA, is now looking at potentially joining the writers. So that's an interesting twist. We've already seen some of that, like Snoop Dogg, for example. I know canceled the show because he wanted to be in solidarity with the writers, and he didn't want it was Netflix or somebody making any money while he was he certainly didn't want to hire scabs to do that. So this was at a Socialist alternative, Zoe Cedeno. All right, we'll throw a little Spanish flair to it. God, only 631 views on this, which is so sad. Actors Guild authorizes a strike alongside the writers. So this is great. Right? Unions to fight together against the studios if no deal is reached by the end of June. So they've given a deadline. You got 5.5 days to get this thing worked out, guys. Not even. You got 5 days and an hour and 40 minutes at this point. So WGA been on strike since May 3rd. As we know, the picketers at the entrances of Paramount, Warner Brothers, Netflix, Amazon, other major studios, 5 days a week. Though writers are facing the numerous hardships that come with such long fights, they're sharply aware of the stakes in this contract battle. So there's a really well-written article. Studios are now moving to divide film and TV workers. But on June 5th, SAG-AFTRA members voted to authorize a strike. Over 97% of voters, just like UPS, were in favor of strike authorization with a turnout of 48%. That's pretty good, that's nearly double the typical turnout.
What about the 10%?
What about the 10%? So support for a strike among the 160,000 union performers not only represents broad support for the writers, but also comes from studio practice, of course, that have made it a living, made earning a living as a performer increasingly difficult. Actors like writers face diminishing revenue, residuals, and long stretches of unemployment, and the use of AI to devalue their labor, right? That's what's happening. Voice actresses as well, voice actors and actresses, I know of some that's happening too. So the Their refusal to budge on issues with the Writers Guild has taught SAG members that the only way to get what they need is to fight collectively. So now they all are, and I love seeing this. All right, a banner called Screenwriters Everywhere, made of writers' guilds and unions, has organized solidarity events in multiple countries for June 14th. All right, potential SAG thing, again, 160,000.
I think the only writer that's not striking, I think, is Stephen King. He's still writing comedy for the news. So, you know.
Well, he's certainly writing the narrative on Ukraine, it seems.
Yeah.
But it's evident that the DGA, that is the Directors Guild of Association, the day after SAG authorized the strike, they announced that they had negotiated a tentative agreement with who's the AMP, the AMPTP. That's like the theater guild or whatever, you know, the people who put the money that pay. But it's evident that the DJ has only secured these concessions because WGA is on strike. SAG is threatening to do the same. So it's like they're really afraid that if Directors Guild goes out too, well, they might as well
strikes.
Right, they might as well make a deal with Directors Guild. But if the actors go out too, the film and TV workers need the unions. Well, yes, need studio unions. This is that. The internal logic of film and TV unions means many creative laborers belong to multiple unions. For example, some SAG members belong to WGA. Some DGA members also belong to the WGA, working as writers and directors on projects. While this highlights the immense creative capacity of writers, performers, or directors, it means the different duties fulfilled by a single worker are represented by different unions, which is tricky, right? But this has been the source of ambiguity, yeah. All right. During the strike, for instance, technically, writer-directors are on strike as writers, but are contractually obligated to continue working as directors. And this division of labor, of course, is artificial. Writer-directors, writer-producers, and writer-actors often need to employ all their skills and experience to do their jobs. Like, how do you just be a director? I guess you can, but not if you wrote the thing originally. Like, you need to adjust a word or adjust a thing. Like, okay. So they've asked writer-producers to fulfill their non-writing obligations on set with strict guidelines. So they do have an idea of what they want to do. Now, here's what Socialist Alternative calls for. No deal without a collective deal, which solidarity. SAG members, DGA members must vote no on any tentative agreement until all three unions get the deal they need. This is the best way to ensure the strongest terms for all three unions. And fully shut down production. Yeah, shut her down. SAG needs to start preparing their membership for a strike, including the large portion of SAG members who didn't vote. The full power of both unions will only be brought to bear if the membership is mobilized and withholding their labor collectively. Can't have any scabs within the union. No more mini rooms. That's something that's happening. That's studios.
Or mini bars.
Well, more mini bars, yes. Studios need to employ
only.
a full staff of writers as determined by the writers themselves. I don't know how they make that determination and if there's a budget versus the number of writers. I don't know. But living wages year round. No more depending on seasonal work. Contracts should include off-season stipends to ensure workers can afford to live all year. And they would say that workers need to budget their salaries and their lives better because they're capitalists and they're also starving the workers. But you can see some of the writers here. I put on our thumbnail, it was Fran Drescher. She's the head of I think she's the head of SAG-AFTRA right now. She's one of the union heads. The nanny, yes, that Fran Drescher. So, solidarity, of course, with the writers. I appreciate that the actors are also seeing the potential in what a strike can do for them. What can Brown do for you? What can strikes do for you? What can withholding your labor do for you? So, again, shout out to Socialist Alternative.
Call him Mini Room.
Right? Mini Room.
That's Mastermind Hour in the chat.
There was also as I was searching, and all I did, I wanted to search for some other strikes that were out there. There are a couple of decent websites that you can just kind of Google and say current active worker strikes. Because if you just search strike, there's strike a match, there's bowling strikes, there's all kinds of different strikes. But one of these images that I happened upon as I'm looking for some content and for the thumbnail was I found this, and that's Spirit Aero Systems is another company that had a strike action where workers at the facility in 28 years who have not gone on strike, right? They are going on strike after rejecting their contract. They build aerospace stuff and aero systems, right? In Wichita, Kansas.
Is it like Spirit Airlines?
No, it's not Spirit Airlines. It's Spirit Aero Systems. So they're going to go on strike after rejecting
to Wichita.
A final. Well, my friend who lives there calls it Wichititty, which is kind of funny. But
yeah,
I
how old is
guess
that?
Well, as old as I am, because he and I are the same age. But thousands of workers at Spirit Aero Systems in Wichita who rejected the contract 79-21, with 85% voting to initiate a strike. So it'll begin Saturday after the current contract expires. During the work stoppage, workers will not receive pay or benefits from Spirit. So they're going to lose their health care. They're going to suspend factory production on Thursday prior to the expiration of the current contract. That's nice. They also asked employees in the union not to report for any scheduled shifts for the rest of the week. They still will receive scheduled pay. They will receive pay for their scheduled hours. But employees not in the union will be allowed to report to work. So they have some non-union employees. This is what they're looking for over the 4-year contract, is what they consider a 34% increase, which is 7, 8, 10% year over year between wage increases, cost of living adjustments, and guaranteed annual bonuses. None of this is really unreasonable. But of course, Spirit's offer included ending mandatory overtime on Sundays. But of course, they were scheduled to work overtime on other days. They would have had to use earned time off. It's a whole, it gets pretty granular. I'll put this in the description. But this was another one that Spirit said it plans to continue meeting with machinist leadership, which is good. Workers at the facility last went on strike in 1995 when it was still owned by Boeing. That's incredible. And here's more details about the proposed contract, which you can read right there. Right, current contract did expire on Saturday, right, on June 23rd. Production operations will remain suspended until they can reach an agreement. While we're disappointed with the outcome of the first vote, despite the endorsement, we will continue to work with the representatives. That's nice of Spirit to say so. So that's most of our labor stuff. And that's all good stuff, because that's people like realizing that management isn't giving them anything until they decide to withhold their labor for a better deal. And then management will have to decide, will it cost us more to replace these people to deal with the legal actions that come with stonewalling them? Or do we just pay them the extra couple of bucks a fucking hour so that they can live, or give them the time schedules that they need so that they can work with their families better, and everybody can attend events and know what's going to happen, because these schedules being extended is difficult on everyone.